Welcome to a CX Moment. I'm Roisin Hunt with Zendesk and so glad that you're with us here today. For anyone new to a CX Moment, these are candid conversations and a real opportunity to hear insights and experiences from leaders navigating the world of support and hopefully giving you some practical nuggets of wisdom that you can take back to your own teams. In this episode of a CX Moment, we are pivoting just slightly. We're about to dive into an EX moment with one of our closest customers, Zendesk. That's right, we're taking a look inside at an EX experience. And we're joined today by Mariah Schuknecht, VP of People Operations here at Zendesk. But before we dive in, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the comments where you're joining from. But also we have a question. How easy is it to get accurate and fast information from your HR team or your people team? A, seamless and easy. B, average, it's confusing and slow sometimes. Or C, really challenging. Let us know. And of course, if you have any questions for Mariah as we go through today, pop those into the chat too, and we'll bring them to the conversation. All right, enough from me. Let's hear from Mariah. Welcome, Mariah.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
We're so glad you're here. So set the scene for us a little bit. Tell us about how your team is structured and how you support Zendesk employees.
Yeah, of course. So I lead the broader people operations team. It consists of enablement, HR systems, risk management, and then the people services and operations space. For the context of this conversation, we'll speak more about the people services and ops space. So we have roughly 50 specialists and senior specialists that are managing day-to-day tickets. They're answering questions. They're doing tasks on the back end, benefits administration, et cetera, that they make up our tier 1 and tier 2 support teams and manage roughly 80% of the tickets that are coming through. And then the rest of the tickets are then sent to our centers of excellence, our talent acquisition team, our compensation team, our benefits, et cetera.
All right. So I'm seeing in the chat, a lot of people are saying B, their experience getting information from their HR team is average. Sometimes it's slow, sometimes it's confusing. So is that something that you have seen in your career?
Yeah, to be honest, I think this space is complex, especially when you look at it from a global lens. Like, for example, here at Zendesk, we operate in 22 different countries. There are 22 different laws and regulations, different leave types, different benefits. So I think it is always a challenge to create a seamless experience for employees. And that's something that's really front and center for us this year.
And then what are the channels that employees are using to kind of communicate with you and get information?
Yeah, so right now it's largely in tickets. We're leveraging, obviously we're leveraging Zendesk, so through emails that then funnel into tickets, and then through our help center as well. We're actually launching chat though in the next month, which I'm very excited about. So it'll give people the opportunity, I think twofold, one for my team and then one for employees. It'll give people the opportunity to get real-time feedback, and B, it will really drive people to the help center to see the great content that we already have, because I think in some instances people skip that step, right? It's easier just to send a message than to do a quick search.
Yeah. And then what are the types of tickets that you're seeing from people? I'm sure there's every day is quite different and every ticket's quite different, but what are the general types of things that people are asking about?
A lot of things about benefits, a lot of exciting family news, some sensitive news, right? It could be question around bereavement leave. It could be a question around adding dependents to your benefits package. A lot of business-driven things as well, org changes, manager changes, relocations, things of that nature. Offboarding, voluntary and involuntary, runs the gamut. Really all sorts of employee life cycle questions, and then administrative work.
So you talked about centers of excellence in terms of the structure. Do you have various skill levels for the agents who deal with more complex issues as opposed to the more simple, straightforward requests?
Yeah, so it's interesting. We're at an interesting point in our maturity model. So I actually came to Zendesk about 3.5 years ago with the understanding that my role would be to build and mature a shared services function. And about, the first 2 years were really focused on most frenetically transitioning services. In the past, everything had been done, the talent acquisition team was sending out offers and we're screening candidates. The benefits team was managing all of the day-to-day tasks. We had a core group of 5 or 6 coordinators that were managing kind of the manager changes, the onboarding, et cetera. Now that we have transitioned most everything into the people services team, the tier 1 group is a group of individuals that will manage prescriptive content. So we have really robust process guides. We have something like 375 processes that are documented within our internal help center. So it's very prescriptive. You have a basic level of Workday knowledge and then of ZHR knowledge. Tier 2 is an escalation point for us. So if a tier 1 specialist doesn't understand an answer or can't find the answer within the help center, they'll escalate it to tier 2. And at that point, those are the people who will then escalate and coordinate with our centers of excellence, with our people partners, if it's a people issue, to make sure that we're getting, also with payroll, with legal, et cetera, to make sure that we're getting the answers that we need to our employees.
Yeah, so that operational excellence, that operational efficiency, getting the right people to the right people to get the information that they need. And I suppose when you were thinking about areas that you wanted to address, to operationalize, to streamline, to make more efficient, what was on your mind as a success metric? Like, what did success look like to you for the team?
Yeah, I think you can look at this from a number of different angles. For me, it's pretty simple, and it's no news is good news. I think that if employees get an answer and they get it relatively quickly and it's accurate, they're not going to sort of praise you, right? We do get some lovely shout outs from employees, which the team really appreciates. But really, I think when you identify that a people services function is not working is when you hear a lot of noise. And thanks to our agents, we're not hearing a lot of noise.
No news is certainly good news. And then, how did you get there? You talked about processes that you've streamlined, that you've operationalized, 300 or something different processes. What was your approach to get to that point where no news is good news?
Yeah, and certainly I'm not going to say that we're perfect, right? There's some news. I'm hearing some news, but we're making really, really amazing progress. Yeah, so the first step was prioritizing all of the different processes that we had, identifying the areas with the largest impact, and then transitioning it to the shared services team. And we have about 40 people right now in Manila and 10 in Poland, with managing a 24/6 internal support model. So first 2 years was really just that, the transition. And then I look at last year, actually joke with my team, I call it the Marie Kondo year, because we cleaned out old tickets and we identified areas of opportunity and we created this service catalog in the internal help center, and we really built the building blocks for us to be able to scale.
And then there is a question in the chat from Brandon, which may dovetail nicely. What would be the top priorities for a people team building an internal help center for the first time? Because I know that this was, we talked about this and you mentioned it, but where would you start for someone like Brandon?
It's so interesting you asked that question. When I came on board, I spent a lot of time. I actually went through sort of area by area, and I was like, what content would people need? I cleaned out some of the old stuff. I added new stuff. But I would say, look at the basics first. Like, anything is better than nothing, and do it from a continuous improvement model. And then Zendesk actually has this, it's called the knowledge capture app that we've started leveraging. And we've created a gamification exercise with our agents where if people are asking questions on a regular basis, then they flag articles to be created. So it's not, we sort of went from this top down methodology to bottom up, and it's been wonderful. It's been a great engagement opportunity for our team answering questions. And it allows us to not have to do some grandiose project. So I would say start small and then let it build on itself versus spending, 9 months building it out and launching it and going through the process, because it will be outdated before you know it, right? So making sure that you have the governance model in place is really important.
Yeah, and almost, that's a very customer or employee centric way of doing it. Let them tell you what is most important. Sure, have your required and suggested and best practices, but then for those other sort of help self-service articles and information, like letting them tell you and dictate the direction, is a really interesting approach.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, when we talk about, and Brandon said, thank you very much. That was really helpful. So if anyone else has questions, let's bring them to the conversation. We've got a Mariah here for the next 15 or so minutes. But in terms of that strategy and starting with your centers of excellence and, various tiers for agents, what has that done for the role of your team, the agents that are helping employees, and then their position in the company? For their agility, for their flexibility? What has that strategy done for them?
Yeah, I laugh because I'm so proud of the team, truly. I think that they have been remarkably agile, because not just are we building a shared services function, but when we started 3 years ago, the company was at, I think, 2,000, 2,500 people. Now we're at 6,000 people. So we've evolved the model, not just because of the build, but because of the rapid growth of Zendesk. So I think it's given the team an opportunity to cross skill. They've jumped from different areas, from being being solely focused on benefits, for example, to, I call them ops ninjas. Like, they know a little bit about everything, and they're able to jump in, and they're able to flag articles that are not up to date, identify opportunities to streamline handoffs. So I can't answer for them, but I would hope that they would say this has been a really interesting, fun, challenging build.
Yeah, well, they're impacting the strategy and the direction of the help center quite directly.
Exactly. And they'll be able to see the metrics behind it. We're leveraging Explore. We have this new continuous improvement model that we're putting into play that will identify how many articles are flagged, what the click-through rates are, so we know what to target. So yeah, we're having fun with it.
And just want to touch on that a little deeper when you talk about the metrics, the success metrics. Like, obviously, biggest success metric is no news is good news, right? It's seamless, it's perfect. But what else are you tracking to get to that point?
Yeah, so we have SLAs in place based on first response time and then time to close. We're also looking at, we implemented about 6 months ago as part of our sort of build the building blocks, we implemented a quality assurance program. So we're actually auditing about 5% of our tickets across the board. And we're looking at 3 different things. We're looking at, A, did we get it right? Is our response accurate? B, is the ticket governance right? Do we categorize it in the right way? Did we escalate it to the right place? Was it sitting idly in a black box somewhere? We didn't get to it, right? And then third, we look at employee connection. So if something was taking longer than we had said it was, did we follow up with that person to acknowledge it? If back to what I said, or if it's a bereavement leave versus a parental leave, are we approaching it with the right tone, et cetera? So we're really looking at the empathy side and the accuracy side.
And that is very interesting, because that is something that's coming out more and more, particularly with customers. But, employees are your customers, right? So in terms of the employee sentiment, like, you are beginning to look at that and implement that into the way that you deliver support.
100%. Yeah, I think it's really important, right? Because at the end of the day, especially with employees, we're all human. And if we come at it, and it is a bit tough as you start creating, macros and automation and these other things to make sure that you have that human element to it. But we're working hard. I think the chat will help as well. Just, to make sure that it's okay if we use an exclamation point, right? We don't need to be robots. We're not robots. So let's act as such.
Well, that is a great segue for Elizabeth's question, because they've asked, how do you plan to leverage chat as part of your offering?
Yeah, so we'll turn it on 24/6. I think it's interesting in the HR space because it is quite dynamic. There are a lot of questions that people are going to be different questions. We can't all be experts in everything. So what we are starting with, and we will manage expectations for our employee base, is the basic tier 1 level questions across the board. And then our intent is to continue to elevate that level of service as we go. See how many questions we're getting, see what types of questions we're getting, and then we'll probably flex into different subject matter spaces as we go.
Yeah, so starting small and then expanding as you iterate. And Tony had a great comment here about QA and continuous process evaluation just being really essential, and that agility is not just for the likes of developers and engineering, it's for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that we're seeing that even, like, for example, we've had a few roles that have left that we haven't had to backfill because we've been in position to manage handoffs in a more streamlined way. So yeah, definitely looking at it across the board, and it's not always about a fancy integration, right? It can just be making sure that you don't have 3 spreadsheets instead of 1, right?
Yeah. And then what are some of those integrations and tools that you are using to connect across the team?
Yeah, so the what we have right now integrated with the Zendesk instance is we use a tool called Maestro QA that pulls in tickets for our quality assurance checks, and it enables there's a coaching app as part of that as well, where we flag tickets that might need coaching for leaders to work with their agents. We are integrated with Asana. So, for example, right now we're in the process of moving our HRIS, our Workday tickets, into Asana to leverage, to have more visibility and transparency across the spaces. But we can just click a button now and they go straight from a ticket into Asana, which has been helpful. And then with Workday, essentially every Workday inbox task that we have is CC'd to our Zendesk instance. And the Zendesk instance then allows us to make sure they don't get lost. They're managed appropriately. They're directed immediately to the right team.
So a couple of key integrations there, just seamlessly connecting everything, which is always helpful. I want to go back to the self-service aspect, because we talked about this a little earlier about how important that was. And Brandon also had another question about, that being the place to drive employees to. But how are you continuing to expand that self-service and still maintain that kind of human aspect as well?
Yeah, I think it kind of goes back to, I don't know that people want or need a human aspect if they just find the answer in 3 minutes and they don't need to wait for a 24-hour SLA, or they don't need to jump into chat. So I would actually push back on that a little bit and say, we definitely want the quality when people send tickets, but I'm okay to push people to self-service if we have the content and we can direct people to the right places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you direct people? I suppose Brandon's like, what is some advice where you can begin to redirect people who do like to send a ticket? Because some people, it's, there's a little bit of education to drive them to the help center.
Frankly, I don't think we've done a great job at it yet, if I'm honest. So the plan this year, as I said, last year was very much building blocks. For me, this year is all about self-service, and it's about a communication strategy that not pushes people, but allows people to recognize that it's there.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put the right content in the help center. We'll launch chat with it, which inherently will push people to the help center because chat is on the help center.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and not just in Zendesk either. We're looking at the same thing in Workday. We get a lot of requests for Workday reports, for data, for information that we think we'll be able to enable self-service for. So the hope is that we not the hope, the aim, we will manage a lot of these pieces the first quarter of this year, and then we'll do sort of an engagement and communication strategy for the second quarter of the year, and then we can kind of look at the baseline versus where we're at now with traffic, or where we will be with traffic.
I am so sorry about that, everyone. That has never happened to me before. Technology, friend and foe sometimes. So apologies, Mariah. And we were so close to wrapping up, and you were telling us about your aims for getting to a really streamlined comms plan and making sure that everyone is directed to the right place. What that you're focusing on for the next year? What is next? You're getting there, right? You've put all these building blocks in place. Simplicity is the key, really streamlining. What is next?
Just optimization. With the self-service piece, I think that will save us a lot of time. And then it becomes, then it does become, how do we integrate the systems to make sure that we don't have to have human intervention? There's an ability for us to eliminate errors because we're avoiding some of that. We're not doing some of that work. So we'll really focus more on the systems infrastructure going forward.
Wonderful. And then I was curious also, have you seen a shift from, operating an employee experience from, a hybrid, some people in the office, some people not, to now a digital first world?
I think more than anything, it no longer allows people to sort of tap on your shoulder and ask a question. And that would have happened anyways with the shared services model that we've put in place. But I think there's pros and cons to that, right? Like, it goes back to that human element and making sure that you find the right balance for your people on when they can come to you, when there's sort of a white glove experience versus when we need to create more efficiency and get people, give people the information on a silver platter, but in the form of an article, right? Versus a face-to-face interaction.
Awesome. So beautiful simplicity, fast, efficient, accurate information. That's the goal. No news, good news. Any parting thoughts for our audience here today? Some people are maybe starting their process. They might not be as far along as you are. What would you leave them with?
I would leave them with ruthlessly prioritize. I think there's this, I think sometimes we get into this place, we're like, well, we need everything at the same time. We need measurement, and we need self-service, and we need clear handoffs, and we need documentation. And I would say, think about those building blocks and order them appropriately. Like, a great example is, I would never have been in position to be thinking about measurement right now if I hadn't done what I did last year first. So be really thoughtful about the order in which you do things. Keep the agents and the team in mind, right? Bring them along on the ride, because it will really help you in the long run.
Awesome. Build it and they will come.
That's right.
Well, Mariah, thanks so much for your time today. And thank you to everyone at home watching and for rolling with us for the technical difficulties. We so appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let us know your thoughts in the chat. There's a survey link that you can fill out, and you could win a $5 Starbucks gift card to have a coffee on us. We will be back in March for a CX Moment, but join us in February on the 15th at 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 p.m. Eastern for a CX Trends event. Our 5th annual CX Trends report has been launched. So we're going to dive into immersive CX and the 5 trends that every business needs to focus on for meaningful customer relationships. We will be back in March for a CX Moment with the Dutch Bros Coffee House. And until then, thank you very much. Take care, and we will see you again soon.